The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers nor Rogers TV.
Hi, and welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is the mayor of West Grey and Grey County Councillor, Kevin Eccles, someone who I have not had on the show for a while. Dare I say, Kevin, pre-COVID? It's been a while.
That is how long it has been, yes.
Yeah.
And I took kind of a break from the public domain there for a few years, so that had a little bit to do with it as well.
Of course. But you came back.
I thank the electors of West Grey for that, absolutely, and putting their face back into me again, and hopefully I can meet their expectations and hopes and desires to move West Grey forward.
Yeah, it's there were a number of politicians who were in the same position as yourself. I'm thinking of Brian Milne as another example, who came back in Southgate. He had a term away, and then he came back. And now you're back as well. Dare I use the analogy of riding a bicycle? Once you learn, you never really forget.
True enough. And I think about the bicycle thing is certainly there. You learn how to maybe ride it a little more carefully the longer you go.
And I think that in these political times, it's fair to say there's a lot of tension in the community, in the world, in this country, in this province over a variety of issues. Do you find that things have changed yourself now that you're back in political office?
Yes, it has changed. There's still an awful lot of it the same, the interaction with different municipalities and whatnot. But I think that, and it's probably more to do with social media and whatnot, how as politicians, how as municipal leaders, our interaction with the electorate, how that has changed dramatically. There's not as much face-to-face anymore. It's all Facebook or whatever has changed how we interact with and how municipal politicians communicate with the residents of their municipality as well, too. That part is what's changed. And on a provincial basis, how the interaction and respect, and it maybe not as much to the large urban centers with our provincial government and maybe even our federal government, but the rural, my feeling, and it's just my personal feeling, I can't say that there's scientific proof to it, but the interaction between the province and the electorate of rural Ontario, Northern Ontario, yes, we're certainly less populated and there's not as many seats. And when you get to that political, it's, where the numbers are, and the numbers aren't, and we've suffered and continue to suffer, I think, from not getting the ear and not getting what we need, not the gifts or anything of that nature, but I don't think we're getting our fair share from either the province, I'll say both, province and the feds anymore. We're kind of outliers there, and trying to reestablish that it's important. We may not have the number of votes, but we certainly have what drives the economy. Rural, who feeds, farmers feed cities, and farmers don't live in the cities. They live, our food and whatnot comes from rural Ontario. So getting that respect back, I think, it's changed, certainly since COVID.
Well, you're certainly not the first elected member who has said that, had that kind of thinking. So I don't want you to leave thinking that you're alone. And I'm sure around the county table you've heard similar comments, but certainly I have heard on this show our elected representatives saying the same kind of thing. That yeah, respect is a good way to describe it. And let's hope that the hubris of the two levels of government, the sort of pride of the two levels of government will kind of get dialed back a bit, so that people like yourself and other municipal politicians will get listened to.
I certainly hope that the cry from out here in the hinterland will reach those receptors soon, and the sooner we can do it, the stronger we can make. Because the province, and or the country is only as strong as its weakest links. And I don't think that we're a weak link, but there's been a lot of stress put on the links of rural Ontario, northern, the rural parts of the area are starting to be neglected or overlooked. I'm not sure just which adjective would be correct.
Yes, and I guess the one place where that is most clear or most evident is around our hospitals. And we've got some real issues. And I can see, yeah, you're smiling because you're living this, I'm quite sure. Durham Hospital is closed. Walkerton Hospital is closed. Chesley Hospital is closed, or at least their ERs are closed. Not their whole hospitals, of course, but their ERs are closed. And that's definitely a big change for a lot of people, which forces people to go longer distances to Hanover or to Owen Sound or to Markdale.
Or to Mount Forest,
yes.
In case of West Grey. Certainly, and there was a press release the other day that did with the Mayor of Brockton and the Mayor of Erin Elderslie and myself on that, and then the protest that was in Queen's Park on Monday, and we certainly supported them to remember us. And I think it's one of those things about rural Ontario, but it's surprising. It's an integral part of the infrastructure that we have to have. The province keeps pushing out there that we need to build 1.5 million homes in the next 10 years to be able to accommodate the growth that we see and what we need to give our community the support that is required of a civilized nation. And in type with that, I mean, yeah, you need water, you need wastewater. We think of that type of infrastructure, but yeah, the tipping point of it becomes you need hospitals, you need healthcare. That is probably the most integral part of Canada that the world, envies the most, is our universal healthcare. And now all of a sudden, no, you can't. You can't have that on Saturday and Sunday anymore. Maybe we need to look at it and see how it's supplied, slightly different and whatnot. But the idea of just kind of ignoring it is what I see at this point in time from the province. I certainly struggle with dramatically.
Sure. Are there any specific actions that the municipality or you are taking to draw that to the province's attention?
We've certainly been very vocal with our local MPs, whether it be Mr. Byers or our neighbor, Ms. Thompson, Mr. Ray from Wellington. Yeah, we're at every opportunity we have. It was certainly one of the big things at the AMO conference back in August, where the largest delegation of municipal politicians have got together, elected officials and staff in front, and it was front and center at that for the ministries that were there and the provincial bureaucrats and elected officials that, hey, we need to get together. You can't solve the problem. We can't solve the problem. How do we sit down and work together on trying to push this. You know, local municipalities were going for doctor recruitment and this and that that's being pushed down onto us. Is that what the property tax dollars are supposed to be in? No. But can we help out the province fill their mandate? Yes. And I think that's where we should be, and not in competition trying to steal a doctor from Kingston to supply one in Essex and steal one from Leamington to put into Huron County, and then stealing one from Huron County to put into Grey County. And that's not solving the problem. This is going to need more than just a Band-Aid solution. I'm not going to say that it's open heart surgery, but it needs, there needs to be really some serious input onto this and how we're going to address it for sure.
Interesting you say that, because I have heard often the criticism of local physician recruitments that basically all you're doing is eating somebody else's lunch. Absolutely.
That I see it no different. We're both, all of us are out there trying to, we can't find another dog. We're all chasing that dog and grab, okay, I've got him for a day. And, it would be nice if we could all share the dog, but no, we're all trying to grab ownership of it, and nobody is captivating that.
Right. It's a big, complex problem that I hope the province will grasp hold of. Certainly, we have an upcoming financial statement, and when I interview Rick Byers in a few weeks, I'm looking forward to asking. He won't tell me anything about it, but at least we'll get a date on when the fall financial statement. And who knows? Maybe there'll be something in there. But
I would. But my fear is that we'll throw a bit more money at it. We've proven that for the last 20 years. That's not the solution to this. It's, whether it's immigrants that are coming here, one of the things that, just specific that really bothers me is, you've got some immigrants that are coming with highly qualified and credentials and whatnot. And yet the medical part, well, you've got to go back to, you've got to be a qualified doctor here. So, we'll put you back in school for another 2 to 3 years, so that it's our schooling. Give them a bit of a test. I don't think we're this high above the World Health Organizations. It's that ability for them to come here and supply that for us, and acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think you're making a very valid point. I've had experience over the years with that kind of restriction, and physicians who are internationally trained certainly have good medical skills, but got to have that Canadian experience.
You got to have that Canadian experience, and you've got to have you got to have a stamp from a medical university here.
Mm-hmm.
And going, so is this follow the dollars? Yeah, we got to have their 3 or 4 years. And some of them, and one of the ones I always remember was in Yugoslavia, Kosovo. In that, doctor finally got out of there after 3 years of serving, and when that civil war was going on, came to Ontario and talking to them at the spot, and I said, yeah, but you've got your emergency. You're going to have to go back to school. Your emergency. So I've worked in a war, in an emergency room in a war. And they were just so tired of it. But, after a month of trying to be here, went to the States and started work the next day in a hospital down there. I get the idea of qualifications for certain, but how much are we pushing for overqualifications?
Well, it's not new. I remember, it'll be 25 years ago, having this same conversation with an obstetrician gynecologist from China who had met all the tests, but because they didn't have Canadian experience, couldn't practice.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've come long enough that somebody coming from any European country and whatnot, they come here. Oh, they need a driver's license. They've been driving for 25 years. Yeah, maybe if they were in England and they were driving on the wrong side of the road, but we give them a test, and you come in, test, and away you go. We don't send them back to start at driver training in G1, 2, and 3. You've been driving. Here's the test. Away you go. Can we not get something of that nature? But what I'm finding, and hearing certainly is no, that's not the way we do it in the medical world.
Yeah,
a lot of protectionism.
Well, it will be an interesting thing to see. It's not over yet. The federal government has a role to play, obviously, because they're a primary funder of the healthcare system. So we shall see. Just keep on pushing. That's all I can say. Just keep on pushing.
I think
I've never known you not to be. I've never known you to be not to be a wallflower, Kevin.
Oh, I think and that's a compliment as well too. Yes, it's something that absolutely we've got to keep pushing and influencing. And as I said, it's not as much pushing and pointing a finger at the province and saying, what are you doing about it and whatnot. How can we get together and together put things in place? And as you said, and this stealing from the robbing Peter to pay Paul when it comes to doctor recruitment or any of the medical professions for that matter.
Sure. Well, you mentioned AMO, which was held last August in London. And I've asked every politician I've interviewed so far, well, what did you do at AMO? So what did you do at AMO?
Connected with a lot of old friends that I hadn't seen because of COVID and or being away from politics for a few years. Certainly was great that way on a personal basis, but on a work basis, we had some very good meetings with the ministers and had a good session in the bear pit session. I was able to get to the microphone and ask a question, and something very specific, not very specific to West Grey, but it is a problem across the province. Back in the late 1970s, the province redid the registry office, and you've got farms here, 100-acre parcels. Bob Smith owns both, yep. And in the late 70s, early 80s, the registry office, without anybody knowing, we just merged those on title. So now we own, so we only have to deal with one. Well, Bob, 40 years later, decides he's going to retire and or bless, his estate. Yep, one goes to his daughter Mary, and 100 goes to, well, no, his son John doesn't get one for the simple fact it's merged on title. And now to be able to settle the will and whatnot, in favor of the individual. No, we've got to go through the whole process and sever the 200-acre parcels so that we can settle the estate or that they can sell the farm. And it was just, it's ridiculous. So I don't know. I haven't heard back from the ministers yet, but I did ask them. I said, on a stroke of a pen, you were able to merge them. On a stroke of a pen, will you just, put it back to what it was? Nobody told MPAC. So we still get tax bills come out from the municipality. You don't know it until all of a sudden you want to disperse of, yep, no, it's two parcels. I got tax bill here for property A, tax bill here for the north 100. Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything at the registry office. They merged on title. So somewhere between $5,000 to $10,000 later, by the time you've got a survey, by the time you've gone through the whole severance process to get them back to two individual 100 properties. And that's just one of the great things. There was a lot of information and education on energy, where we're going there, carbon, and the greatest topic was who's going to build these 1.5 million homes? Where are we going to build them? Since we've heard about that. Apparently, it's not going to be as much in the Greenbelt as what we thought. Housing was one of the big, certainly the hugest issue there. And again, I get back to that, is that a property tax? It's an income sharing, a split that way. And I think that that's where the biggest part of this has got to come from, is the province just saying, oh yeah, we're going to forgive, development charges. Oh, you're taking that away from the municipalities. Thank you. Yep, you're going to pay with it for our money. I appreciate that, Mr. Ford, very facetiously. So if we're going to do this and whatnot, and it goes back to basically the World War II, we've seen a lot of that war housing. How did we manage to do it then? I don't know whether we need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to pull that wheel back off the shelf and do it. And that was through federal and provincial. That was income sharing. It wasn't property tax dollars that we're just going to build these homes. The other factor is where are you going to find the product? Because most homes are built out of wood, and over the last year, we've burnt more wood than we would have needed to build 1.5 million houses.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because housing is certainly an issue. I mean, 1.5 million houses, not in the Greenbelt. That's good. That's
been reestablished.
That's the mea culpa that we all listen to, and certainly it's cost the premier 3 cabinet ministers to move to that position. But well, those are the issues of elected politicians at the provincial level. You don't have a cabinet.
No, I certainly don't have a cabinet. We don't have one. That's always been the way of it. You get party politics when you're at the province, and somebody said that about municipal, and I said, yeah, you're put there. Everybody, you're elected, whether it's the 7 members in West Grey, 9 members in Owen Sound, or 5 members in Chatsworth. Yeah, you're brought together, and you work as a team for 4 years. Figure it out, work as a team. It's not, and that's what I find difficult with federal and provincial politics, is that, yep, I'm in opposition, so I just oppose everything. Yep, I just oppose it because that's what I'm here to do. Where did that ever come from? I'm just baffled by that. No, you are there, to put forward different ideas and whatnot, but to move the business of the province or of the nation forward, not just, no, I'm opposed to it. Not going to bother.
It's interesting you mentioned wartime housing, because I just finished a little bit of research into that. And that was, of course, the beginning of what used to be Wartime Housing Authority originally, and then it became Central Mortgage and Housing, and finally it was Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. But they did all kinds of incredible things in the post-war era, including I came across a booklet, 67 Canadian housing plans. They actually had plans available for people to buy. $10. $10 for a set of housing plans. And
there you go.
Yeah, with really good advice about how to build a house and what to look for. What do you find? Where do you find a contractor? What kind of things? And there's even legal and financial advice in this book. And it was apparently, back before I was born, even a bestseller. And you've heard of tiny homes?
Yes.
Okay. Almost all of the plans were under 1,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm. And how many of my friends, your friends, relatives, or whatnot, were raised in a lot of those houses?
I'm living in one. I'm living in one. It's just, for 2 people, it's quite adequate. And I am told that although this house isn't, I can see some resemblance on one of those plans. But although this house was built in 1954 that I'm living in, and I'm in a downstairs basement, and there were 2 adults and 2 children in this house at the most. And that's all that's necessary. It's
I think some of our expectations certainly have grown largest and whatnot in that aspect of what is affordable and attainable housing. Well, what is attainable and what is required? And I think sometimes we've lost that. I will say it, and somebody will say it to me that the house that I live in, is it bigger than what I absolutely need? Absolutely. But socially, we've got into that almost that everybody, if you need a home, it's got to be 1,800 square feet with a full finished basement and da. And you go, no, I don't. No, we don't. Yeah. I don't know whether it's jealousy or just our own legacy that, well, I've got it. So to feel good, everybody else should have it as well, too.
Well, I noticed that in these plans, there are no garages, curiously. The other thing is that in the kitchens, you won't find granite countertops. And you won't find stainless steel appliances with monster fridges. It's or stoves, multi-level stoves with 3 different with a microwave and 2 separate oven spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. But I think there is something to be said for some of that. But well, I suppose we got to have the latest and the greatest, I guess.
Well, and how much of it has been truly sold to us on capitalism?
Yeah, you wonder. The
economy has been driven that this is what you need. No, it's not what you need. It's what the corporate world needs to be able to meet those profits, to be able to make the dividends on the shares. Mm-hmm. We continue to be sold on those types of things.
Yeah. Was there much conversation at AMO about things like renewable energy and climate change?
There was a couple of very good sessions on climate change, recognition, where we're at. What I couldn't really get out of it, and maybe it's way above me, is, what actually can we do that's going to make an effect? I think everybody was there, and the stats and whatnot would tell us, the climate's changing. But is there enough that we can influence in the time that whoever is projecting it, whether it's engineers or futuristic individuals, and saying, this is what we need to do in the next 5 years, 10 years. Nobody has that concept of where we're going with that part of it. We should maybe be doing this, that might help, this might help, but it's a help thing that we think will do some influence on it. Renewable energies, not as much on renewables anymore as energy production. Very good. Our nuclear industry was there and did a great presentation how they're, and certainly next door on Lake Huron, how Bruce Power is ramping up continuously for it. One of the big things was, how are we going to get into the electric car charging, or who's going to get into the electric car charging? I think the bigger thing there is on electric car chargers. Okay, how do we put them in? We're back in that infancy when we had service stations. Somebody says, well, we've got service stations. I said, yeah, but you realize 60 years ago in the town of Durham, there was 9 stations you could have. Everybody was pumping gas, but where did we get to? And I think we're in that same stage right now of trying to figure out, should it be a public domain, or Should it be? No, it'd be in the private sector. But it's trying to see where the business case ends up for that on the charging portions of it. As the technology develops, I think we're going to be okay. One of the things that I always laughed at was, we've got vehicles now with gas power that'll go 800,000 kilometers. Yeah, well, more efficient gas, more efficient travel, but they got bigger gas tanks on them. The older cars, when they first come out and whatnot, they had a gallon. Some of them were monsters. They had 2-gallon fuel tanks on them. What was the mileage on, what was the distance on those ones? Oh, well, we could go 30 miles, on it. Today, you would laugh at it. I think the technology, but it was more onto where the technology is going on energy, whether it's in electric vehicles, whether it's in revamp. There was some discussion and more discussion on revamping new technology on the renewable energies out there. Not so much on the wind turbines, but on solar. And I think we'll see a lot more on going into hydroelectric, trying to, with technology, emphasize how that will go, because that is purely a pure energy renewable there. And as I said, the nuclear, how they're ramping up, because it seems like we're going back more and more into the electrical age.
Sure. And on that note, Kevin, we're going to take a break, and we shall be right back for more conversation. I'm David Shearman. Yes, we'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
I don't care what the law is. I will never be a slave. That word, I hate it. It rests on my tongue like rot.
Peter, how does it feel to get paid for your work?
There are rumors freedom's coming for us all.
Freedom, you know that's all I want.
Chloe, careful. Real men would rather sell you across the river to America than let you go free.
Then I'll run.
I've run before. Maybe this time for good.
No! Just get her into a boat. No!
Chloe? Chloe, no!
Word of Chloe Cooley's resistance led to Canada's first legislation limiting slavery. After 200 years, slavery was abolished in Canada in 1834.
Hi, I'm David Shearman, host of Politically Speaking. Join me for my next show, Thursday evening at 7 o'clock on Rogers TV. Hi, and welcome back to Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. My guest today is Kevin Eccles, the mayor of West Grey and a county councillor for the county of Grey. Kevin, good to have you back again.
Always a pleasure, as I said before, to be here in the presence of you, Mr. Shearman, and thankful that you would have us back.
Kevin, you compliment me too much. That reminds me of an old story I think I've told before about Mitch Hepburn. Was out on the campaign trail, and one of his elections back before I was born, and probably before you were born. And he jumped up on the back of a manure spreader to give us his stump speech. And one of the farmers yelled out, "Okay, Mitch, put her in high gear." So, oh, yes.
And if you want one of those, I have another one that a gentleman that ran with Mitch Hepburn was Farquhar Oliver. And he was at some place one day, and they asked him to give a speech and whatnot. And Farquhar was known as quite an orator. And they said, well, he says, I'll need something to stand on, maybe to address the crowd here. And somebody wheeled out a wheelbarrow and said, yeah, there we go. We think we've got it cleaned out. So he jumped up in the wheelbarrow and stood up. And he said, it's one of the first times that I've been able to stand on the opposition's platform to be able to speak to you individuals. I'm not sure how Mr. Frost received that, but
well, those were
the days of politics.
But those were the beautiful days. They were the days that we remember, although it was a different era, of course. But lots of good stories. If you get politicians yarning, particularly older politicians, you can hear some really interesting stuff. I do recall when I lived in New Brunswick, I had a cabinet minister in the community, and he had some very interesting stories. Former cabinet minister, I should say. Very interesting stories. Anyway, well, let's get on to actually something we've touched on already, but I did want to raise it, and that is housing, because it is absolutely top of the order paper right now. If it isn't the government wanting to build 1.5 million homes and all the shenanigans that are going on there, it's the opposition saying, well, get moving. And then we've got builders who are saying, yes, but, and we've got the feds who are saying, well, we'll waive the HST on rental properties, and so on and so on and so on. It goes on and on and on. And I noticed as I looked through the minutes of the most recent West Grey Council meeting, there were public meetings regarding two subdivisions just to the west, just on the west side of Durham, one behind the hospital and one opposite Grey Road 4 on the north side. So how many houses in total are in those two subdivisions? Or are they planning to put in? Somewhere
in around the 300, 350, depending. They haven't finalized just how they'll lay them out, how intense densification is going to be on them and whatnot. But yeah, we're probably in close to that 3 to 350.
Yeah, that will increase the population of Durham significantly.
I don't think we'll be challenging Owen Sound yet, but we'll be getting close. No. And I guess the other factors, the ones that are being built right now, there hasn't been a lot of development, and certainly development of that capacity in Durham for 100 years. On the north end of town, Sunville Homes is building out 280 houses there in that subdivision, and they've probably accomplished at least 50% of that now. Just to the east of that, Bruce Brothers, Walter Bruce, has 400 lots in that completion of that, and they've got the roads in. They haven't started building yet, but I understand they're coming very close to starting in on that portion of it. So there's 600, 700 homes there, and then another 300, 350 on the west side. So that will more than double the size of Durham in the next 4 to 5 years when these projects are built out.
How do you see that having an impact on the municipality?
There'll be some positives. There'll be some negatives. One of the biggest things is, where's all that traffic go? How do we manage the movement of people within the subdivisions and in and out of town type of thing? I don't know whether it'll mean roundabouts or stoplights. I'd go with the roundabouts, but we'll see that. It's increasing that amount of population. Certainly be a strain on the infrastructure. I'm not certain. I know, it's not that I'm not certain. I know that our water, will be tested. We'll have to increase the capacity there. We're definitely going to increase the capacity to our water treatment plant. And how and where we get the funding from that is to be determined yet. As you grow the population and whatnot, you're going to have to grow certainly the infrastructure needs just to be able to supply the requirements for that. That's going to be some of the downfall. The bigger thing is positives. Everybody said about the downtown, no matter which municipality you go to these days, our main street is da 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 da. We haven't got, well, if you haven't got the customer base, you're not going to have the business open. That's the business case. The more people, the more diversity, the more you're going to have those types of businesses start showing up. I think there is certainly a lot of positives to growth. One of the ones that I've always debated, though, is, well, you've got all this growth. Now you've got all the rest, you've got all this increased tax funding and whatnot. Yeah, some point in time, where the tax base is, and you've got some increase in it. But as I said before, you've got to put more water in. And to do that, when you start talking about that, it's not $1,000 increase on the tax bill. That $1,000 or $2,000, $3,000 you get from the individual tax. Oh, well, that was $1 million. And to put in a kilometer of road these days with water and sewer and everything, the developers are certainly paying for a lot of that, but there needs to be upgrades to it and whatnot. That's $1.5 million. So the tax, growth is good, but growth should pay for growth. It doesn't quite even out that way a lot of the time. We're going to need some support from the province to do that. So it'll be more lobbying, but there's going to be growth is good, and we've got to manage it very well.
You expect to see an increase in the industrial base, light industries? I noticed, for example, that there's I call at least one new tenant over in the Old Forest Products complex just to the west of the city. There's somebody's assembling what they call skyjacks.
Skyjack, boom jennings.
Lifts.
Yeah, that one has come in. Certainly there's the opportunity. And there again, it's if you have the workforce, companies will. We have the facilities, I believe, for that to supply that. And it's great to see that the old Interforce building is slowly. It's certainly not to the employment rate that it was back in the 70s and 80s when Interforce was booming, and into the 90s when they had 400 or 500 employees there. And that was a regional employer because people drove from many different municipalities to work there. It's coming back. And certainly, as you said, Cinnabon is in there. The Forge Company, Forge Max is there as well too. So the industry is improving, and I think you'll see even more so as you start building these houses and stuff. There's moving product from coast to coast is being more and more of a problem. So there's going to be some localized, whether it's window manufacturers, whether it's doorknobs, some of that type of spin-off, we would certainly hope to capture as well too. We can't all make ice cream like Chapman's do, so we'll leave that at Markdale for the time being.
But people will drive from Durham to Markdale, or from West Grey over into Grey Highlands.
Absolutely.
One of the things I've discovered I was talking to someone from Durham last week, and they were saying that they moved to Durham 3 or 4 years ago, and what they've discovered is their kids moved up to Mount Forest. And I'm thinking, okay, that's the kind of growth that we may see a lot more of. Mom and dad move to Durham or Markdale or Owen Sound or wherever, and the kids move further out to be close.
Yeah. As we said, sometimes you get the kids to move out and then all of a sudden they move back again. Oh, geez. But
I know that game.
Yeah. But I think you're exactly right. We're starting to see more of that manufacturing, more job opportunities. And certainly I've got to say thank you to SWIFT, the internet connection and connectivity that we've had, seen that. Is it perfect yet? No. Have we got all of Graham Bruce covered yet? No. But the coverage is tremendously better. And it's one of the things in the subdivision that I live in. Yeah, we've got, was one of the selling points when we got here was that ATEL was going to have fiber. And with that, that's the difference in manufacturing and in jobs. Yeah, an individual can move out of Burlington and chase their parents up into Graham Bruce County and maintain their job because they don't have to go to the office 5 days a week. Their office is off the corner of the bedroom or in the basement. And with the connectivity, how industry has changed dramatically, and job opportunities are here. The head office may not be here, but the job opportunity is.
Very true. All very, very true. I noticed that and I'm going to the weeds a little bit here because I noticed that there was a public meeting this month about some of those new developments. And there were concerns expressed by, I think it was the Conservation Authority, about drainage. And are those kinds of things showstoppers, or are they just sort of speed bumps along the way to these housing developments? Does it mean they don't go back to square one? I would hope. No,
and that's part of the whole development portion of it. Has come out. They've been. I would fully understand that they have been working with the Conservation Authority, and it was something that the Conservation Authority had identified. And they're not showstoppers. In the case of these two, there may be some properties out there in other municipalities or other areas, even in West Grey, Durham or Newstead, where no, conservation is saying, yeah, no, we'll stop right here. But on these two projects, yeah, this is going to be, so take it in mind, deal with it. It's upfront. And I think the engineering and whatnot and our capabilities these days, it'll be able to be addressed, certainly with some concerns from the public. And that's one of the things with public meetings and understanding how much work that the public doesn't see that has gone on in these developments and the engineering and everything that, yeah, we're aware of that and we're already doing it. And, there's very few things these days that somebody can bring that hasn't been identified in the lead up. It's not like a developer was driving up the road one day and looked over and said, that's where we should build. Yeah, we're going to build, 200 homes in that 20-acre field over there. Well, better start tomorrow. No, most of these projects have probably 2 to 3 years of professional planning and development and testing and everything going into it before we ever get to the public meetings.
Sure. And the planners are professional. The province lays out a fair amount of regulation as well that the Planning Act has to be met. And so some of that verbosity gets a little tedious at times, but there's a reason for it. It's because the Planning Act is the Planning Act, and these are conditions that must be met.
Exactly, and the conditions that must be met. It's not like the wild late 70s days when Grey County, the severances, you could sever off any little corner you wanted for a 2-acre lot, and yep, it's some unsuspecting soul to come along, and this is where you're going to build your a weekend home, and I guess we didn't tell you. That was, you saw it in the wintertime, but yeah, the ducks nest in here for most of the summer. So I'm not sure just what, there was a lot of that done. But that's why the regulations are in place today, so that we are protecting those types of things in the environment for sure.
Right. Or you don't discover that the land you bought is actually a piece of swamp.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's still some of those lots that are sitting out there that are severed and whatnot. And you go, yeah, we can't build on that, even with today's technology and engineering and whatnot. No. And there'll be one or two that in this term of council that will return back to the municipality. The guy will say, it'll maybe have passed down to 2 or 3 in the family. Will go, what do we have this? No, I mean, the taxes are only $35, but or $50. We're not paying. No, municipality, you take it back. It's yours now. Oh, what are we going to do with it? So you end up back onto the property.
Yeah. Now, I was also reading in the minutes that you're part owners of an airport.
The municipality of West Grey is.
Yes, the West Grey is part of, not you personally, of course.
No.
You don't have a corporate jet either, so it doesn't come with the office of mayor.
No, it does not. No.
But there is an airport that belongs to the 3 municipalities of Brockton, West Grey, and
keep going. Come on, you're doing good.
I know. Hey, I'm getting old. My mind is going here.
Hanover.
Sorry?
Hanover.
Okay. So with that, the proposal is that you let go of those shares, and you sell the airport. Is that
That's been the proposal that's come forward from Brockton. Just be clear, the Brockton municipality is feeling that it's time to get out of the airport business. Mm-hmm. And they put a proposal forward to the municipality of West Grey and Hanover and said it's time to dissolve and sell the airport, like the city of Owen Sound did, like Georgian Bluffs, the joint Georgian Bluffs South Bruce Peninsula did a number of years ago. Collingwood Airport, I understand, is another one. But most lower tier municipality, a lot of those airports have been sold or are in the process of looking at ways of divesting. And Brockton's taken the lead on that and said, here's a letter and here's what we want to do. So there is some discussion. What would it look like? How could we do it? Should we do it? What's the business case for keeping it? So we're in the discussion points right at this present time.
Yeah, and it'll come back to the table at a future meeting, I'm presuming.
Absolutely, most definitely. It's there's certainly nothing carved in stone yet, or there's been no ink put on paper as to what it is, or I haven't seen a check come across the municipal vouchers yet to say, oh, and it's a done deal. No, it's far from that. There'll be a complicated process with the 3 municipalities on how or where we go with this, but it is on the board right now. So something we'll need to address sooner than later.
We got 5 minutes, and I wanted to ask you about Rockwood Terrace. Where is Rockwood Terrace at? And I know that's a kind of a silly question because it would take you half an hour to talk about Rockwood Terrace.
Rockwood Terrace, it's a beautiful spot. It's on Brock Street in Sadler. Have you ever visited there?
I have visited there many times. Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's where Rockwood Terrace is. But I jest with you because I know what you're talking about is the redevelopment. The redevelopment, the county has got the initial works started to start clearing the site, getting the ground work in place, working with the municipality of West Grey at the present moment, because where the new Rockwood Terrace is going to be, kind of in behind the school, in behind Rockwood, just to the east of the curling Club, if anybody's been up in that part of Durham. It's some trees covered, some pine that is growing up there, basically on the old gravel pit. And there will need to be 2 roads. Rock Street will need to be extended and South Street will need to be extended. So putting in that work, starting that, should start here before the end of September. Matter of fact, it has even started now, some of the initial work to clear the site, start putting in the infrastructure for the roads as we get prepared for the tender or the RFP comes out, and we're looking at construction on the building itself starting in the spring of 2024.
Well,
so, exciting.
That's good. That's all good to hear, because I know that these facilities do need to be replaced, and Rockwood Terrace is one that has to be replaced. But I had this ongoing running joke with Bill Walker about the Markdale Hospital. And I kept, when he'd be on the show before he retired from politics, I'd ask him, okay, what's the update on the Markdale Hospital? And I'd always throw something out and so on. So Kevin, if you're back, we'll talk about Rockwood Terrace, okay?
Yes. It seemed like Rockwood may, but it hasn't been quite as long as the Markdale Hospital.
No.
It was certainly great to see the Markdale Hospital redevelopment, that project, for what the community at large has put into that, and a fair bit of fundraising and whatnot, out of the community. And I'm not seeing the municipalities that surround it, but the community, and not just Markdale, a large area of influence there, and good for them to have the inner strength to stay with it as long as they did. And I think we have that same type of tenacity for the Rockwood project as well, too, that we'll see it come to fruition here if we can get started in the spring of 2024. It will be an 18-month, almost 2-year project to build out. So it'll start, if we start it in 24, I'll be back on before it's finished. Certainly in 2026 is when we're looking at it for it to be finished.
Maybe before the next election.
Absolutely before the next election. Let's put it that way. Yeah. And we did have a very good meeting with I was with the county when I was at AMO, not just with West Grey, but we had a very good meeting with the ministry and whatnot, and the support is still there. That these projects are going to go forward, and the funding commitment from the province was great to hear, because the timelines were fairly tight, whether we could meet all of them and whatnot. But we were given assurance by the ministry individuals that no, there'll be not exceptions made, but things will be shifted to continue to work and have these projects in place.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for being a part of Politically Speaking. We will get you back on again. Kevin Eccles, the mayor of West Grey and Grey County Councillor, thank you. And thank you, friends, for being a part of Politically Speaking. I'm David Shearman. Yes, we'll talk again.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Sports fans know Sundays are for football. That's why you need NFL Sunday Tickets. With NFL Sunday Ticket, you'll get every live game, every Sunday afternoon, all season long. Follow your favorite teams and players live in HD. Order NFL Sunday Ticket and get up to 200 regular season games. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1 today.